All right, today we're going to jump into a topic that I think when you look at where Bitcoin and Ethereum is going, everybody wants to know, is it sideways for a while? Will we see it rise? Today we're going to answer why all of this could be moving in a direction that will be very interesting to you. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back to TechPath. All right, so some of the things that we study here, really we study all the time, but that we really watch closely are the involvements of the critical companies that make up the world financial system. The world financial system is the reason that Bitcoin and Ethereum will be a long potential investment for you. And this is also why we see, other than store of value and why Michael Saylor and all of the Bitcoin maximalists kind of go in this direction. But the potential here is around the idea of the infrastructure that runs society today, the monetization system, and how this will adopt crypto in general, but blockchain specifically. And I want to jump to a story here quickly on 55% of the world's top banks have invested in blockchain and crypto companies. Now, and we'll go down through just some of the companies that are here, but in 2021, this continues to be a hot field for both banks as they look obviously into capitalize on the emerging asset class. And this is one thing that I've talked about. You can kind of see in the green there, Barclays, of course, and Citibank are leading the charge in terms of the number of investments that they're moving into. And here is the understanding of why this is important. The reason is very simple. When you have banks starting to move into investing in the companies that actually run the rails, they clearly see the writing is on the wall. So this isn't about them mainly because of the legislative scenario that we're facing, and also to a certain extent, whether or not they can get the rails put in place, because there's a lot happening, and there's some companies that are kind of helping that happen, of getting the banks ready. And we're going to talk about a handful of banks who are already making these kinds of moves. But the big point is when you can't play, you have to invest in the field around it. And that is what is happening right here. I want to jump to a couple of these companies here. These are the top banks investing in crypto right here. Standard Chartered, this is London, 789 billion. 6 investments. I want to go right here to Citibank, 14 investments, 2.2 billion, obviously US. And then further on down right here is BNP Paribas, obviously that's French. And that is 3 billion in investment, 9 projects. Goldman Sachs, 8 projects, 1 billion. And then of course, JPMorgan, 8 projects, 3 billion. This is why, and then MUFG, of course, in Japan, 3 billion, 6 projects. And you can kind of see the project list up line over here. And I know I'll put a link in the description for this particular resource because this is on FinTech News. Actually, you guys can probably find this. Just go to FinTech News, search on the top banks invested in crypto and blockchain, and you'll understand. But understanding where these industries are going is also very important. In other words, what companies and ecosystems are being invested in, because that's going to help direct where the potential goes for all of cryptocurrency, including Bitcoin and Ethereum. But if you just look quickly, trading investments, you can kind of see the numbers here. Industries, Coinbase, Upvest, you can kind of see all of those, obviously with Streamy. Then you go into DLT technology, Nervous, some of the recognitions, R3, Ripple, of course, being XRP, kind of the idea of where the underlying rails are. Payments, Circle, Token, Veeam is in there, custody and security. You've got, NYDIG and of course Fireblocks, big ones. Over here on capital markets, these are, of course, are new and emerging fast. Trade and finance, Crowds and Comgo. Here's one that I think is kind of interesting too, is just finance and banking. This one I think is going to be the area that really starts to blow up. Energy tech, now you're starting to move into some of the outliers, and of course identity, and of course agritech. So the point is you've got a lot of activity in this space. Also, Switzerland's DLT Act came into full force this month, which also enables a lot of these banks to start to move in some new strategies of how they're going into ledger-based securities. This is going to be interesting to watch because this right here is the underlying activity that is going to start to move mainstream adoption. And mainstream adoption is where you're going to see the major moves in both Bitcoin and Ethereum, and a lot of altcoins for that matter, mainly because they ride upon the coattails of Bitcoin and Ethereum. I want to also and I had mentioned this company before, we're trying to get them on the show, and this is a company called Metaco. Metaco is basically the rails of being able to enable banks to actually utilize crypto exchanges for active trading within the bank platform, meaning the apps and all of that. So this company is a very important one, I think, in the space of basically taking the next step in banking, especially around crypto, and moving it to the masses. This, of course, will start to happen as we start to see more and more legislation move in the right direction. I want to also jump to this company right here. This was a company based out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. This is a bank, Vast Bank, which recently, shouldn't say recently, because they actually coined the deal and did a deal with Coinbase at the beginning of the year, and then have been working on implementing this into their app. So technically, right now, at Vast Bank in Tulsa, Oklahoma, you actually have the capability to do crypto banking. So they are running full-blown trading capacity. They've got buy, sell, both on digital currencies 24/7, no transfer delays. Here's the 1% trading fee. They essentially are moving in this, and what the underlying tech here is Coinbase, that essentially has initiated a partnership with them. Obviously, they have the debit card, pay your bills. So now you've got crypto pay. All of that this is what the future will look like, but it will look like this at every single bank that's out there that wants to be in the mainstream when it comes to an opportunity of an alternative venue or an alternative monetary system that is moving into this new venue of mass adoption around crypto. Let's move on to here. This, of course, was Encore, officially announced on Tuesday, new collaboration with Crypto Finance AG and Swiss IT. This is, of course, again, new digital finance products based on Tezos. And these are the kind of things that are happening right now, and more that are really kind of moving into a very core element of banks swiftly adopting. We could see our first ETFs this year, most likely will. And when those ETFs kick in, you are going to see mass adoption. You're going to see the bank runs moving quickly to these kind of things, much like what Vast is doing. And I think that's going to be the big player here in where the future is going. I want to jump to the charts real quick just to take a look at where the market cap is holding. Still over 2 trillion, even though we have seen Bitcoin soften a little bit down here to 47, and of course Ethereum down to 31. And I want to just jump to Bitcoin's sentiment over here on Trade the Chain. This is the 7-day. And again, you can kind of see this fall off right here that we're seeing currently. Now, am I worried that this is movement? No, this is money makers making money, using the markets the way they're meant to be used, and that is sideways action and small, or I should say big gains on small moves. And that is essentially is what we are seeing. So not necessarily a negative sentiment scenario right now. We did have a little bit lower sentiment, starts to fall in these areas where you see these kind of movements. But overall, I'm still very, very positive that we are going to see some pretty big moves on both Ethereum and on Bitcoin. I also want to jump to Ethereum, not to be always talking about Bitcoin, because those are the two asset classes that are typically going to be the risers that are going to drive the market, both for DeFi and obviously for traditional crypto with Bitcoin. This, of course, is some of our reports that we've been doing over the past few weeks, kind of where ETH has been moving. Sentiment was rising, as you can kind of see it coming out of 48. This was back in mid-June. Here we go in mid-July. We saw continued movement. We've been tracking it and predicting some pretty good movement with ETH, and we're still holding pretty tight with our last prediction. It was holding right in the zone, which this is, the fatter these zones, the more accurate we can get in terms of data. But when it gets starting getting the narrows, when it starts to get a little waffly, and that's exactly where we're seeing ETH right now. Now, could we see an upswing right here? These sentiment layers and amplification layers get really tight in terms of the amount of data. When you see these things tighten up right here, that's based on less data available, but it's usually more focused. So it's a key on who is out there basically doing communications on all the different social platforms that helps drive the kind of the network or node effect that happens in social media around cryptocurrency. And this, of course, is where ETH right now. So it's definitely bumping right outside our predictive layer. Will it take a little bit of a ride up this right here, or will it continue to hold right here? Because it is starting to hit one of those resistance lines at about $3,000. This will be interesting to see if we can kind of see how Ethereum is going. But the point being here on this video is to really kind of get you understanding where the market is moving and why there's so much action and has been so much action in the past couple of weeks, and why this is just the beginning. That is the kind of moves we've seen happening since January from a lot of these major institutions and a lot of the major banks that are starting to make real hard moves into the space. So we're going to continue to track these. Some of these are going to have very, I should say, some of these are going to have very basic and pointed impacts on Bitcoin and Ethereum in the coming future. And I think as we continue to see more and more data come out, more and more social data and also sentiment data that's tracking along with this, and then of course the adoption side, big moves are coming. Obviously, we're going to keep you updated here on TechPath. If you are listening over on the podcast, make sure and give us some likes over there. We love your feedback. And of course, here on YouTube, best thing to do is comment. Let me know your thoughts on where you want to see, whether it's a token analysis or you want to take a little bit more deep dives into the driving forces of where the market is moving. You know, really, when you look at Bitcoin and in general, a lot of these markets, it's all money flow. Money flow is directed by sentiment and amplification. That's what we do here. It's not being done anywhere else out there on the internet when it comes to crypto coverage. So hopefully stay tuned and subscribe right here. If you want to reach out to me direct, hit me up on Twitter @Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.